There are few better feelings as a college football fan than watching your favorite team win and clinch a spot in the playoff on the rival's home turf, and that is exactly what Notre Dame fans were able to witness on Saturday. But a couple months ago, I would have said that was never going to happen. How this Notre Dame team proved me and so many others wrong is next on Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome into Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and I'm thrilled to have you here on Monday, December 2nd, and thanks for getting your week started right here by making this your first listen of the day. Quick reminder to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you were tuning into the podcast today. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. What a game that was inside the LA Coliseum on Saturday afternoon. There was so much at stake for the Irish when they took the field to take on their arch rival USC. And credit to Marcus Freeman for getting this team ready to play because they delivered time and time again in the most crucial moments of that game. The Irish went on to win 49-35, and the score doesn't even really tell the full story because this was a tight game. But with the win, Notre Dame clinched a spot in the college football playoff and locked up the opportunity to host a playoff game and potentially the very first college football playoff game to be held inside one team's home stadium, as it looks like Notre Dame is probably going to host that game on Friday night, December 20th, to kick off the college football playoff. That is yet to be confirmed, but that's sort of been the rumor that's been going around, and we are going to discuss it all today, from the highs and lows of the game to all the different performances that made it happen and what it all means for the future of this program. But before we get to that, I have to admit something. I was wrong about this team. I was. I'm not saying I was wrong about this game because I predicted Notre Dame to win this game. I thought it was going to be close and eventually they would pull away. I didn't maybe expect the defense to give up as many points as they did, but still, I was right about this game. I was wrong about this team. Because as you might remember, if you've been watching the show for a while or if you've been listening, you're an everyday listener of the show, you will know that before the season, I predicted that this team would go undefeated. That obviously did not happen. But at that time, I said that they would either go undefeated or they would finish 10-2. I did not think that they would go 11-1 because I felt if they lost early, specifically looking at that game against Texas A&M in the season opener, I felt that the pressure that they would be under to win out the rest of the way would be too much, and eventually they'd stumble. So even though they beat Texas A&M, they lost the following week to Northern Illinois, I felt they were destined to lose at least one more game because they were going to be under a ton of pressure the rest of the way, and they were. That part is true, but credit to this team, they did not stumble one single time. I also declared that this season was over in my instant reaction video following the loss to Northern Illinois because of that same logic. That was an embarrassing loss. I felt like they would lose again just because of how poorly they played in that game. Like, that was an upset. It was not an accident. Northern Illinois got the better of Notre Dame on both sides of the ball in that one. Sure, if a couple things go differently for Notre Dame, they probably win that game, but still, that was a terrible loss, and I thought for sure they would end up losing again. That did not happen. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even particularly close. Notre Dame rattled off 10 straight wins to close out the regular season, 9 of which were by double digits. And the only win that wasn't by double digits was the Louisville game, and they actually were leading by 14 points throughout much of the fourth quarter, but Louisville was able to score a late touchdown to cut it to a one-score game. Right now, Notre Dame is number 1 in the country in point differential. The only team with a longer active winning streak is Oregon, who just finished the regular season as the only undefeated team. And if you look around college football, especially the past couple weeks, so many good teams were either upset, like Ohio State. I cannot believe they lost that game. Ole Miss last week against Florida. Miami this week against Stanford. Or there were some good teams who had their backs firmly pressed against the wall, like the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't know if you could be more firmly on the back of any wall like Georgia was when they won that game in 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech. And Notre Dame was definitely challenged in this game. There's no doubt about that. Even though they won by 14 points, there was a moment late in the fourth quarter where it looked like USC had a realistic shot at winning a game. It was the first time Notre Dame felt any real pressure in a really long time. They were tested in a way that they really haven't been in months. But this Notre Dame team was able to score 35 points in the second half after being tied at 14 at half to seal the win and punch their ticket to the college football playoff, courtesy of 2 pick sixes returned the length of the field. First by Christian Gray, and then another by Xavier Watts. After that, game blouses. And I don't know about you, but I was very nervous when USC was driving and they were only down 35-28 because I felt like, okay, even if USC scores, the game's tied. It's not like they have the lead. Notre Dame had not really been doing that much on offense the previous 2 drives. And it's not like they could kick a game-winning field goal in this one because Mitch Jeter missed yet another field goal attempt in this one. Notre Dame has not seen one go through the uprights in several games. And even though the offense had been good overall, they went 4 plays in a punt on the previous possession and 3 and out on the drive before that. Plus, their best player, Jeremiah Love, was ruled out for the game. And it was very tense where I sat for that last drive. And I feel like this was kind of a microcosm of the season, right? Because now Notre Dame is under real intense pressure. Are they going to wilter or are they going to step up and make a play? Well, I don't know how Notre Dame felt on the sideline. I don't know if the pressure was getting to them, but Christian Gray was under a lot of pressure in this game, and then he came up in the game's biggest moment and made the play of his career and the play of this season for Notre Dame. It was definitely Christian Gray's worst performance of his career at Notre Dame. He was targeted 12 times, gave up 8 catches for 130 yards and 2 penalties. It was bad. USC was picking on him. They were targeting him. Brad Nessler even mentioned it on the call of his interception return for a touchdown. Christian Gray said before that last drive, he was just screaming at himself to get ready. There were a lot of fans who wanted him benched. Honestly, I get it, but the fact is they don't really have that many other great options to replace him because then they're going to have to move Jordan Clark out there. Like, they're not just going to put in another true freshman, Carson Hobbs, to come in for him, especially in that spot going against the talent that USC has at the wide receiver position. But he stayed in the fight, and he made the play of the season, and he was the last player I would have expected to make a one-handed interception because this is the same guy that had dropped 4 interceptions on the year prior to that point. Well, now he has the biggest interception of the year. And then for Xavier Watts to seal it on the next possession, give Notre Dame that 3-touchdown lead with just over a minute remaining was like the perfect way to stamp this regular season. Xavier Watts is the unquestioned leader of this defense and an absolute terror for USC these past few seasons. This is a great stat from Tyler Horka, Blue and Gold. Xavier Watts has registered 25 total tackles, 3 pass breakups, 3 interceptions for 161 return yards and a touchdown, plus a forced fumble and a fumble recovery returned for a touchdown against USC in 3 games against the Trojans. Those are insane numbers to put up on any team, let alone your arch rival. And Xavier Watts sure as hell let USC know his entire way to the end zone. Watch it back. He is staring down that sideline. I think he got some words off as well. He walked them down the whole way to put that game away and punch Notre Dame's ticket to the playoff. And this was a moment where I had my doubts about whether or not they'd be able to come through in that spot, and they proved me wrong again. They were able to deliver. They win this game, and watching the Notre Dame players celebrate on the field afterwards, sing the alma mater a cappella, was just unforgettable. You could see how much this game meant to the team and their leader, Marcus Freeman. They showed incredible resiliency all season long, and they never let that one loss define who they are. As a matter of fact, they spun it around into a positive. Marcus Freeman mentioned a lot in the postgame. He referenced the fact that 84 days ago, which I think most people in the crowd assumed that he was referring to the start of the season. No, he was referencing that loss to Northern Illinois specifically, and he went so far to say that it was the best thing to happen to them. That loss is still embarrassing, and it's unacceptable, and people who don't like Notre Dame are going to make fun of us for that for a really long time unless they're able to win the national championship. But the fact that they were able to bounce back from that game and finish the way they did was definitely not something that I thought was possible. And so many different people deserve so much credit. But first on that list is Marcus Freeman. I doubted him after that Northern Illinois game, and I wondered if he was ready for this job. And I know I wasn't alone in that sentiment, but now I cannot say enough good things about what he has done for this team and this program. And there is still a lot more for him and this team to accomplish this season, but he earned himself a lot of money with that win. He's certainly going to be offered a large contract extension after the season, and it is well-deserved. If I were him, I would wait and see how these playoffs shake out because every win over this next month is going to earn him a lot more money in the long term. And if he's able to lead this team to a national championship, then he is worth every single penny. The fact that this is even a real possibility to think about is crazy. it's really genuinely crazy because you think about the vibes after that Northern Illinois game and even that Miami, Ohio game, like things were not good around the program, but Marcus Freeman kept the faith. He kept his team in the fight, and now they are 11-1, going to the college football playoff, and they are almost certainly going to host a game in that first round. And I tell you what, I have never been happier to be proven wrong about anything than I am right now. I was wrong about this team's ability to bounce back from a loss. Marcus Freeman proved me wrong, and I am happily going to wear it. All right, coming up, there were so many different players who led the way for the Irish in this one, but a few performances stood out, and they were the difference in this all-important game. That's next on Locked On Irish. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And look, I'm not going to lie, I've been in a slump lately with my NFL picks, so we're going to change it up today, okay? So Monday Night Football, Browns at the Broncos. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm wearing my favorite Browns shirt, and I feel like picking the Browns in this one, it doesn't seem objective. I think a lot of people are going to doubt that pick. So you know what? How about this? How about we take Jerry Jeudy plus 210 to score a touchdown anytime against his former team? He requested a trade. They had a bad breakup. I'm sure that he's highly motivated in this one, and I think that if the Browns are able to get in the red zone and they have an opportunity to score, they're going to target Jerry Jeudy because he really wants to make a play. So that is my pick for this one. We're not picking a side, Browns or Broncos. We're picking Jerry Jeudy touchdown anytime against his former team. And for more, just visit FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. There were a lot of great performances in this one, but I believe the Notre Dame running backs are the biggest reason why the Irish were able to have so much success on offense. Price and Love led the way. Jadarian Price had the most rushing yards in the game of his career, 12 carries for 111 rushing yards and a 36-yard touchdown run. And then you had Jeremiah Love, who was on his way to another all-time game. He had 13 carries for 99 yards and a touchdown, also added 38 receiving yards on 3 catches before he left the game with an injury. We are going to discuss his injury a little bit more later on, but Love was outstanding in this one. He had another great highlight reel hurdle. The fact that he has now done this 3 times this season, every single time looks so effortless. It is truly special to watch. I think Pete Sampson made a great point. Pete Sampson of The Athletic, when he was talking about the fact that there have been so many times watching Notre Dame and USC where there's a player like Love on the field, but way more often than not, that player is wearing USC colors. This time, Notre Dame has the best athlete in the field. When they gave him the ball, things just worked out time and time again. So the injury is obviously a concern, but credit to Jadarian Price for stepping up. He was getting a lot more action in this one, specifically in the second half, and they were able to lean on him as well. He continues to make plays, and I think this running back duo is among the best in college football going into the season. I think everyone had Quinshad Junkins and Travion Henderson, the running back duo for Ohio State, as the best tandem in the entire country. But I think Price and Love have certainly made a case of their own. They have been excellent this season, and they made so many plays on Saturday. It's a big reason why the Irish were able to win this one and put up so many points. And you think about the discussion about this team before the season and all the concerns that me and so many others had about the offensive line. You have to acknowledge what they did in this game as well to set up those running backs. The offensive line did give up 2 sacks and 3 tackles for loss, but overall, I thought they played extremely well, especially Emil Wagner, right tackle. He was the highest graded offensive player of the game, according to Pro Football Focus, and the eye test backs it up. He was mauling dudes, particularly on that Jadarian Price touchdown run. He was excellent in this game. At the left tackle spot, I thought Anthony Knapp played pretty well, but it was a great group effort overall, and the work that Joe Rudolph has done this year cannot be overstated. That was another thing that I was wrong about. I thought that this offensive line could be a liability at times, and even though they definitely struggled at some points this season, especially that NIU game, they have gotten so much better as the year has gone on, and you think about all the different guys who have been hurt on that offensive line unit. The fact that they are in this position right now is just a testament to the work that the coaching staff has done with that offensive line, and the running backs took advantage of those holes, and they made so many big plays in this one. I was asked in the mailbag a couple weeks ago, like, who are some players that you think might transfer out of Notre Dame? You think about the modern era of college football, people would look at Jadarian Price as like a prime candidate to do that because he is so talented, but he's not the number 1 option on this team. But As of now, I think he's going to stick around. I think that the buy-in to Dylan McCullough and what he preaches to that running back room, how every single guy has a role, every single guy is going to get their touches, whether you're the superstar Jeremiah Love or the true freshman like Aeneas Williams. Even though he didn't get a carry in this one, he was out there in pass pro making plays. Like, these guys are bought in, and it is a big reason why this Notre Dame offense has been clicking as of late. And I thought Riley Leonard had a really good game too. Yes, that interception was awful. And I'm sure that a lot of Riley Leonard haters were like, see, this is what I've been telling you about. But as soon as that play happened, I started looking at the Notre Dame sideline. Because whenever there's a pick that's that bad, when there's just no wide receiver in sight, I'm always going to look at the coaching staff and think, okay, who are they pissed at? Because someone did something wrong. Either Riley Leonard made the wrong read or the receiver ran the wrong route. And judging by the sideline's reaction, they were more upset with wide receiver Chris Mitchell seemingly for running the wrong route because USC was in zone. I think Riley Leonard expected Mitchell to sit down underneath the zone and hit him on a comeback route, but Mitchell went deep, and as Leonard said in his press conference, that defensive back on USC could have fair caught that interception if he wanted to. But overall, I thought he played well. He finished with a 77% completion percentage, 155 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, also added 50 rushing yards and a score on the ground as well. I thought his touchdown pass to Mitchell Evans was one of the best throws he has made all season long. His touchdown pass to Eli Raridan was really good as well. And as I've said time and time again on this podcast, Riley Leonard is not some great quarterback. He's not going to be going the first round of the NFL draft, but he has developed into a good college quarterback, especially at this point in the season, and I thought he played well again on Saturday. So credit to him and credit to this offense really putting things together. And also, finally, a big game for number 88, Mitchell Evans. I've talked a lot about on this show about times when I've been wrong. Well, I did predict that Mitchell Evans would have a big game in the game preview, but as some of my friends pointed out in a group chat, that is not the first time I've predicted that for Mitchell Evans this year. It has not worked out every single time. Well, it worked out in this one because he finished with 5 catches, 59 yards, and it looked like the vintage Mitchell Evans, the one that we expected to see all season long. That touchdown pass was a great throw by Leonard, but also an awesome play by Mitchell Evans to basically block out the defender, high point the football, get in the end zone, and it was good enough to make the You Got Moss segment on ESPN's Sunday NFL Countdown. So shout out to Mitchell Evans. That's a really good time for him to step up. And the fact that Eli Raridan scored a touchdown as well, like that's the kind of production that we expected to see from the tight ends from the beginning. Hasn't always worked out that way, but the fact that they're clicking now is big. So great performance by the offense. Running back certainly led the way. But on defense, we have talked a lot about Christian Gray and Xavier Watts, but we need to talk about true freshman Leonard Moore, because if that was Christian Gray's worst game in a Notre Dame uniform, that was certainly Leonard Moore's best. USC targeted Moore 10 times, and he only allowed 2 catches for 27 yards. One of those was a touchdown catch late in the game on that last drive. That pissed me off because I'm not saying that USC shouldn't be trying, but I was more mad that Leonard Moore was the one that gave up the touchdown because that is going to negatively impact his stats, and this was truly an all-time game from him. He had 5 pass breakups in this game. 5. That's a true freshman out there. 5 pass breakups is tied for the most PBUs in a single game by any FBS player this season, and he was certainly the only true freshman to do it. He also finished with 5 tackles. He is such a good tackler for any defensive back, let alone a true freshman, and I think he is an absolute star in the making. I have so much faith in Christian Gray and Leonard Moore as the future of the cornerback room for Notre Dame. They are just so, so good. And I thought Leonard Moore's performance in this game was special because USC's got some really talented playmakers on the outside. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And for Leonard Moore to step up in the way that he did was just a huge, huge performance by the true freshman. And then the opposite of Leonard Moore, true freshman, is 6-year super senior Jack Kaiser. He had an awesome game, finished with 8 total tackles. He was all over the field. And with Kingston Viliamu-Asa out, Notre Dame had to tighten the linebacker rotation more than they are used to, and Kaiser played 60 snaps in this one. That is a lot for a linebacker. Kind of looked like what Notre Dame did on defense with J.D. Bertrand and Maris Leofau, because you had Kaiser out there for 60 snaps. Drake Bowen played 60 as well. Jalen Sneed was out there for 41. I was a little bit surprised that we didn't see more of Jaden Osbury. He only played 21 snaps according to Pro Football Focus, but Osbury was effective when he's out there, as he pretty much always is. So it was a really good game I thought, for the linebackers who were out there, but Kaiser played the best of any of them. He had 4 quarterback pressures, a couple run stuffs, and just was in total command of the defense. And that is what we've come to expect from a guy like Jack Kaiser. And for him to do that in his last regular season game in Notre Dame uniform was special. Looking at the defensive line, I thought they struggled to get consistent pressure in this one, but collectively, I thought they played pretty well. Obviously, Howard Cross, Notre Dame's star defensive tackle, did not play, which meant that guys like Donovan Hinish were going to get a lot more work in this game. Donovan Hinish played 64 snaps. That's way too many for any defensive tackle, let alone one of Hinish's stature. Now, hopefully, once Howard Cross gets back and he's healthy, things are going to change there. Junior Tuialamaka got a lot of work on this one as well, playing up against his hometown team. Did not register a tackle, but I actually thought he was pretty active. Surprised when I saw that in the box score because he did have some quarterback pressures, but yeah, just didn't make a tackle. He was out there for 41 snaps. And I felt like the defensive line had a couple opportunities to bring Jaden Maiava down, the USC quarterback, but they were only able to get home once. Gabriel Rubio had the only sack for the Irish in this game. But most importantly, this Notre Dame defensive line got pressure on Jaden Maiava that forced the 2 interceptions. So again, it's another example of these guys coming through when it matters most. And the special teams came through once again for the Irish in this one. Yes, field goal kicking is still a major problem. We're going to get to that. But how about Marty Biagi calling a fake punt from their own 26-yard line early on in the game? Biagi has done a great job with this group. He still doesn't have a field goal kicker, but they continue to come up with big plays in the third phase of the game. I have no idea how USC did not notice Tyler Buckner was out there on the field. It was a great pass by him to Mitchell Evans, and his career arc is so interesting. We've talked about it a lot on the show, but I do love that he has found some role on this team. I figured he would. He did in this game. It was a nice ball by him. And then you got James Rindell, the punter, 60-plus yard boot and his most important punt of the season. He did not get a lot of work in this game, but when he was out there, man, that's one of those times where I'm watching him in the stands. I'm like, look, we heard about this guy all throughout the preseason, how he just has this monster of a leg. There's nothing crazy you have to do. You don't have to pin it in a certain spot. Just unload on this football. He did. He flipped the field. That was crucial. So all in all, this was a perfect example of complementary football. The offense scored 35 points on a talented USC defense, and even though the defense gave up more points and yards than they have all season long, they came through when it mattered most and delivered 14 points of their own on their way to the win. But now that Notre Dame has clinched a spot in the college football playoff, they're going to have to clean up a lot of things from this game. They were far from perfect in this one, especially on defense. So now, should we be concerned about the fact that USC just put up 5 touchdowns on that unit? That's next on Locked On Irish. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Whether it be sports, concerts, comedy shows, you name it, I love going to live events. And Gametime has this great new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I use Gametime to get to the Notre Dame USC game on Saturday, and there's so many other great sporting events going on right now. The college football playoff is fast approaching. The NFL is still in full swing. You've got the NHL and you've got the NBA, so get up off your couch and get in the game with Gametime. But personally, my favorite thing about the app is you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and then you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Game time. Even though this was a great win, there are plenty of things that Notre Dame needs to clean up from this game, most notably the defense, right? This was the worst game of the year for Al Golden's defense, and I've seen a lot of people wonder if this was a red flag before the playoffs get started, but personally, I don't think it is, and here's why. 2 things can be true. Notre Dame can have a great defense, and they do, and their stats could also be slightly inflated because of the quality of competition they faced. That's also true. Notre Dame was the only traditional offense that was ranked among the top scoring offenses in college football this year of the ones that Notre Dame had faced. And let's be honest, they played a ton of bad quarterbacks. I thought Tyler Shuck was good. I thought Jaden Maiava played really well. But a lot of the quarterbacks that Notre Dame faced this season were not very good. And despite their record, USC has a bunch of talented players on that offense. I think Mekhi Lemon is the best receiver Notre Dame has faced all year, except for maybe calling Lacey over with Louisville. And even in that game, that was Lacey's first game back from an injury. He had not practiced or played in months. He had a great game against the Irish in that one, but Lemon was just a different animal. He finished with 9 catches for 133 yards. Then they got Jacoby Lane. All that guy does is score touchdowns. He had 3 catches for 26 yards in this game, 3 touchdowns. He now has 9 on the season, despite the fact that he's not even in the top 3 on the team in reception. So that's another good player. You also have to give some credit to Maeva. He played really well to close out the first half and in the second half before the picks. Now, Notre Dame did help him out, or specifically Christian Gray, with that pass interference penalty on that last drive of the first half, but he finished the game 27-49, 360 yards, and 3 touchdowns, plus those 2 interceptions. But I think that the most impressive thing about his game is that he always gave his receivers a chance. And more often than not, the receivers were winning those unless they were going up against Leonard Moore. So he was able to give his guys a shot. They were able to take advantage of it in several key situations. But I also think that we as a fan base were underestimating Lincoln Riley a little bit, because say what you will about him, his personality, his ability as a head coach, especially at USC, but he's also one of the best offensive minds in all of football. And he's their play caller. Not to mention the fact that last year, Al Golden just straight up embarrassed him and Caleb Williams. And I'm sure that he spent extra time watching that film and getting ready to go up against Al Golden again, because these guys are tenacious competitors. And someone who is as good as Lincoln Riley isn't going to let that happen again. And I thought that he had a really good game plan to go up against this defense. I mean, they clearly were just taking the one-on-one situations that Notre Dame was giving them. Notre Dame is going to run a lot of man defense. That's just what they do. They run pretty much more man defense than most everyone else in college football. When you have guys like Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray playing at their peak, that's great. That's a great strategy, and you're not going to get burned very often. But this was not Christian Gray's best day, and Notre Dame was not giving him a ton of safety help. That's part of the system. That's part of the scheme. That's how they're going to live and die, and it was hurting them at times. Leonard Moore was able to come up big when he was in one-on-one situations. Christian Gray was not, and USC's playmakers were just getting the better of him in a lot of different situations there. So I don't think that this is a giant red flag. I think that sometimes good players make plays on other good players, and I think that was the case a lot in this game. So this was not like a referendum on the defense, nor does it take away from what they've done all year. They just played the best offense that they faced in months, and this offense was able to threaten them in a way that nobody else has while Notre Dame has been on this winning streak. But we should also point out the fact that they were without their best defensive lineman in this game. And you consider Botello and Traore. They've been playing without those guys all year long. And they were also without a really good freshman linebacker. It would also be really nice to have Benjamin Morrison back out there on the field, but that's not going to happen. And I don't expect Christian Gray to have another game like this. So they were without Howard Cross. They were without Kingsley Leamasa. They had to tighten up. USC was able to expose some things, but I'm actually glad that Notre Dame was able to experience some real game pressure in this game before the college football playoff, because this level of talent is going to be the only thing they see the rest of the way. They're done with all their cakewalk games. Now it's on. They're in the playoff. They're going to be playing the best teams in college football every single game from here on out. So the fact that they're able to see that, be exposed to it, learn from it, in a win, I think is great for this team going forward. And I think that Al Golden has plenty to learn from and teach to his group after this game. So I'm not concerned about the defense just yet, but there are some things that I am concerned about. This was not a good game for the Notre Dame wide receivers. Leading wide receiver is Chris Mitchell. He had 2 catches for 25 yards. As a whole, the Notre Dame wide receiver room combined for just 7 catches and 66 yards in this game, plus a very costly fumble by Jaden Thomas. And look, I said it in the game preview, Jalen Smith is a really, really talented cornerback for USC. But as a whole, Notre Dame's wide receivers were just not getting any separations. Like with Smith, you're like, okay, I get that, but that's just one guy. The Notre Dame wide receivers were not productive at all in this game. Bo Collins, Notre Dame's top wide receiver, was out there for 55 plays. He didn't register a single catch, and his regression throughout the second half of the season is a big concern. They never really went to him in a big spot in this game, and Leonard's average depth of target was 6.6 yards as a result. They were throwing it all around the yard against Army. That completely changed against USC. It kind of looked like the offense that we saw at the beginning of the season. A lot of dinking, a lot of dunking down the field, and they were still able to put up points, but they had to lean heavily on the run game. That fumble by Jane Thomas just cannot happen It cannot happen, especially from a veteran who's trying to get more reps on the field. And I was surprised at how little we saw of Jaden Harrison, because he's been playing better as of late. He only played 12 snaps in this one. And if Notre Dame is going to make a run in the college football playoff, they're going to need to be more explosive on offense, create more shot plays, and that means these wide receivers are going to have to step up and produce going up against better competition. So that is certainly something to keep an eye out for. And this isn't breaking news, but Notre Dame still does not have a field goal kicker. I don't understand how Jeter can be so money on his extra points, but then he has to go out there and kick a field goal that was just 7 yards deeper than an extra point, and he missed it. I never gave that one a chance. I actually looked over to my buddy right before he kicked that, and I was like, there's just no way that this field goal is going in. And I actually think that Notre Dame ran the ball on that third down with the intention of setting up a field goal so that Mitch Jeter would be able to see one go in, because it was a chip shot. Notre Dame had a third down there in the red zone. They could have tried to push the ball, maybe try to score there, but nope. They were content with running it, trotting out the field goal unit. And I actually get the logic, because if you're Marcus Freeman, you're thinking it's very early on in the game. It would be great for Mitch Jeter to kick one in, watch that ball go through the uprights, and hopefully help restore some of his confidence that he has clearly lost since he's been dealing with this injury. And he couldn't even hit that one. And at that point, it was very clear. It's like, all right, Notre Dame cannot kick another field goal in this game. It's part of the reason why I felt a little bit more pressure late in the game when Notre Dame was going to potentially get the ball back with the score tied at 35 late in the game, because you're thinking, like, there's no way they could kick a field goal in this situation. And then it did add another layer of just like, that's tough, when a USC student then went out there on the field during the break in the action, kicked a 25-yarder, and they're like, how about he kick a 30-yarder? And he made that one too, just moments after Mitch Jeter missed that chip shot. So at this point, I don't know what you do if you're Notre Dame. Personally, I think it's probably time to go to one of the walk-ons of the playoff, commit to them now. Maybe that's Zach Yoakum, but I just don't think it's going to get any better for Mitch Jeter. He is so far in his head right now, and then you add in the extra pressure of playing in a playoff game, probably in snowy or at least very cold conditions. Like, that's just not a good spot for him, especially as he continues to recover from this injury. So I think they need to make a move there. Maybe he just needs to get healthy at this point. It just doesn't seem possible that he's going to figure it all out in the next 3 weeks. But speaking of getting healthy, Notre Dame really needs some of their guys back after this long stretch without a game. I mentioned Howard Cross. He should be back for the playoff. He warmed up but didn't go in this one. Notre Dame could have used him. Clearly, they didn't need him because they ended up winning the game, but Donovan Hinish cannot be playing 64 snaps in a playoff game. Like, that just cannot happen. They need one of their stars back on defense. They need Cross back. And Jeremiah Love went out with what is believed to be a knee injury. The severity of it depends on who you ask. I can say that from my vantage point during the game, I could tell that he was really begging and pleading the trainers to let him go back out there. He was talking to Marcus Freeman. He was running around the sidelines, jumping. He didn't make any side-to-side cuts, which is a bit concerning, a bit noteworthy for sure. But I think the fact that he was so adamant about going back into that game but didn't go in is definitely a cause for concern. He had a huge brace on his knee, and he was taped up below it. Maybe it's just a bone bruise, but I don't really like Notre Dame's chances without him, so they certainly need him back before the first round of the playoff. And I was semi-hopeful that we could see KVA again at some point this year. I doubt it. I saw the wrap on his knee in the pregame. So big. He was not moving around much, so even though it was a sprained knee as opposed to a tear, I think his season is probably over unless they make it to the national championship game. But for me, as long as they can get Cross and Love back before the first round of the playoff, they should be fine. And I don't really want to end on a sour note, because even though this was not a perfect game, this was awesome. It was so fun to be there, to experience it live, to just finally just like let out so much release and so much pressure that had been sort of cultivating ever since that loss to Northern Illinois. Like, every single game, the season was on the line. You think about going up against this USC team who has a bunch of talent despite the record. It's at USC. Notre Dame has struggled in that stadium so many times in the past. Even though they might have far more talent than USC, I thought they did on Saturday. They did in 2018. They did in 2012 as well. But those are very close games. This was a close game as well, even though Notre Dame ultimately ended up winning by double digits. And hey, I finished 3-0 at games this season. I was at Texas A&M, I was at Louisville, and I was at USC. Hopefully, we can get that record up to 4-0, because I will certainly be in South Bend for the first playoff game. I would not miss that for the world. That is going to do it for me today. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. There is so much more to talk about from this game and the college football playoff and what is to come for this team. And we're going to have Luke Smith on the show tomorrow, as we do every Tuesday, during the season to break down everything we liked and didn't like from the USC game. Then we're going to start to look ahead to the next college football playoff rankings and the playoff at large. It's going to be a little bit different this week, though, because I was in attendance and Luke was not. Usually, it's the other way around. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun. Going to have a new episode out for you every single day, the rest of the week and beyond that. So remember, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way, you never miss an episode. And I'd also really appreciate it if you took a quick second to give this video a like if you're watching on YouTube and you have not already, or rate the podcast 5 stars and leave a review on your preferred platform. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.